Hi, I'm going to do another small update to document what I've been doing in December with respect to my crafting. So it's been a very knitting heavy month, but I haven't actually finished any objects, but I think that's fine. So I've got a few things in progress that I'm really excited about. So I'm going to start with those. So last time I described how I was going to make rainbow socks now, and I'm completely finished with the first one, and I'm almost finished with the second one. So I spent 25 and a half hours on these socks in December, and I started them in December. So that's the amount of time total. It's not going to be too long. I have maybe half an inch more of the leg to do, and then I'm going to change color to white at the cuff. I was concerned that I was going to run out of yarn since I was doing this with scraps from something else, but here I am, almost done, and I still have plenty left, so I needn't have worried about that at all. I think like why I was concerned is because like a previous set of socks that I did using a similar yarn, like a different sock yarn from Hobbii, that seemed to take like a larger quantity of yarn weight-wise than what I'm needing here. But it turns out that multiple Hobbii sock yarns behave very differently. I discovered that early on when I started on the first sock and then realized partway in that the sizing was very, very off because the gauge is different on this yarn than in the other Hobbii sock yarn that I used. So I guess, I don't know, if Hobbii is the make and then Silly Socks is the model, you have to pay attention to what the model is and not just the make. So yeah. So with the pattern, so I guess this is like, yeah, I think like the pattern that this conforms to the most is it's from a book called Socktopus, and it's called the Om Shanti sock. So from the Om Shanti sock, I'm taking the sort of garter stitch short row toe and heel. But the rest of it, I'm just doing a broken rib because that seems easier and it's nice and stretchy, and that's what I wanted out of these. So yeah, I'm really happy with them. That's going well. One of my incomplete projects in December that I'm really happy about. Okay, so the next thing that I'm doing the next thing that I'm doing is the D&D theme scarf, and I've actually made quite a bit of progress on this. I measured this morning to see how much progress I made, and I'm up to 20 inches. So that's pretty exciting. I'm not sure how long it's going to be in total. I haven't done the math because that would involve going back and then adding up all of the different motifs that she's having us do. And that's pretty labor intensive. So the pattern that I'm using is the Yarn Quest Heroes of Yarny and Knit Along from a few years ago, probably like 2022 or 2023. And the way that it's structured is that it's a full text-based RPG. So it's like 70 pages of story. And then every so often she goes like, roll a dice and then knit one of 8 charts or knit one of 10 possible charts. And so if I were to add up how many rows total, that would involve going through and then adding up like, okay, 8 stitches for this chart, 10 stitches for 10 rows for this chart, and so on. But that is to say that the pattern's really fun. I think a lot of her charts are pretty good, especially the really large motifs. So this is a really nice eagle motif that she had us do. And then this is the other large motif that I've gotten to do so far, and it's 2 dragons. What I'm doing in order to choose which motifs to use, and she gives you, like, it's an RPG, so you, as I said before, you get to a section, she says roll a dice, and then the dice will dictate what motif you do. I'm not following the RPG exactly. I roll the dice, and then if I like a different chart better, I knit that one instead. But having the dice, it gives you a nice starting point so that you're given an option and then you get to go like, no, I'd prefer to do this other one. That's what I did with the eagle. I wanted to do the eagle, and so I did. Yeah, so I've spent 18 and a half hours on this in December. I mentioned that the pattern is the Yarn Quest Knit Along. I had a couple of concerns the last time I talked about this scarf in the prior video, and both of those concerns have resolved since then. First concern was that I hadn't heard back from my friend that I'm knitting this for. But I sent him a picture of the scarf in progress, and he responded and said he liked it. So I'm taking that as confirmation that he's happy with the colors, even though I messed up on the ordering. I left my saga about ordering the wrong yarn, ordering the wrong colorway out. He doesn't need to worry about that because he's happy with this one. The other concern that I had is that I was worried that like the gauge was too loose. So I knitted a little swatch. Oh, no, I didn't bring it in here. So I took a smaller needle. I knitted a swatch with that. I knitted one of these dragons actually. So I've got a cool little dragon patch out of it. But the thing is that although with a smaller needle the fabric is denser in the way that I thought I might like better, it came out very small. And then when I actually had both the scarf that I had in progress and the tighter swatch of yarn, I realized that the slightly looser gauge and density of the fabric is in fact what I want. I think a mistake that I often make is that I equate like a looser gauge with like holes in the fabric and saggy looking stitches. But in cases like this, drape is important, and I need to not worry so much about like, oh, if the gauge is too loose, it's gonna look bad. Because the thing is that like the older sections of the scarf that have been here for longer, they've had a little bit more time to fluff up, and it looks a lot less bare now than it did when it first came off the needles. And after 20 inches of this, my gauge is dialed in, I'm moving along, I'm really enjoying it, and the whole process is just sort of evened out, smoothed out, although I am happy that I did the swatch just to reassure myself. So the other thing that I'm working on is that I'm working on a project on the knitting machine, and right now, I have a lot of finishing to do, so the edges of this aren't bound off. I'm going to be Kitcheneering it, but I'm making a cardigan for my toddler. So I did a little colorwork section in the back to spell out chickadees, which has personal significance for us. But yeah, this is the back piece of the cardigan. I've got the two front panels. I have one of the sleeves, but I want to finish it to a point where I can kind of try it on him to see what length of the sleeve is appropriate. He's one of those babies that has really cute, chunky arms, but that means that a lot of sleeves are really, really tight on his arms, but then too long. So I'm going to be making a sweater that's actually fit to him, where the sleeves are going to be the right width to accommodate his little arms, and they're not going to be too long. I'm tired of having to roll up every single shirt on him because I don't want to do that on something that I'm making custom. So on the knitting machine project, I've done 10 hours total. I kind of like the way that the time breaks down in knitting machines because I spent 2.5 hours of planning. I self-drafted this pattern, so that's doing all of the math. I love doing math for knitting patterns. And the great thing about the knitting machine is that because the amount of time that it spends to actually do the knitting, it's condensed way down, you're getting a larger amount of math per time spent knitting. So the high octane thrills of calculating how many stitches and rows you have to do. 2.5 hours of that, delightful. 5.5 hours of knitting on the actual machine, and then like 2.5 hours of doing gauge swatches to make sure that the different elements of things would work out. I love the troubleshooting process. It's so much fun. Yeah, the only part of this project that I'm not enjoying is the yarn that I used. So I've got this yarn that I'm using from Make and Mend. It's 100% cotton, so it will be machine washable. But the problem is that as 100% cotton yarn, there is no stretch. And I'm never doing that to my poor knitting machine ever again. It's bad. It's really bad. It feels like a big effort to drag the carriage across. It seems like the knitting machine is in pain. I don't like doing that to it. And it also keeps skipping stitches in the middle, which is annoying. So, never using a yarn with no stretch on the knitting machine again. Sorry, knitting machine. I love you. I won't do that again. Okay, so yeah, lots of finishing to do on the cardigan, which is the least fun part, but it's something that I have to do. So I'm excited for it to be done. Okay, so I like the idea of going over ideas for what I'm going to do next. I probably won't get to all of this, but I think it's good to just spitball about stuff. because you spend so much time doing each individual project that you want to put a lot of thought in on the front end to make sure that you're doing something that you actually want to do. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've got some plans. So the first plan that I have is for a repair and improvement job, like an upcycle thing. So the idea that I have is I have this hat. It's well over 10 years old. I made it in probably January of 2014. Incredible. I love that I still have it. I love that I still regularly wear it. But it's a little thin. It's a little saggy. I don't like the way that the wind can get in under the bottom because this isn't exactly elastic anymore. And I think I could just use some more heft. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give it a lining. So I remember that this is 100% merino wool. I think it's superwash. And I have this yarn in my stash, which seems, I know that this is also 100% merino superwash wool. And it has about the same squish and texture. So I'm going to try to use this to make the lining. What I'm going to do is, because I want this to go fast, I'm just going to knitting machine it. So I'm going to knitting machine like a big rectangle that I think would fit in here. And then I'm going to do decreases by hand at the top. So then I'll have a big rectangle, seam up the side, and then I'm going to seam it in the middle into the lining of this. So hopefully that'll go quickly and that'll be fun. Once again, the knitting machine is probably going to be like 10% of the total time on the project, which is kind of incredible to be able to just crank out a big section of knit fabric in no time at all. That was a lot of talking while leaning to the side, sorry. So the next thing that I'm thinking about doing is I also recently finished a cardigan made out of this yarn by Hobbii. It's Hobbii Dahlia cotton yarn, and so now I'm trying to figure out what to do with the scraps. I've seen some discussion online about the popularity of triangle shawls, so I might do a triangle shawl. Saying it out loud, I guess I'm not that excited about the process, about the idea. I was thinking about using the hollow bandana pattern, which I mentioned that I had before. I mentioned before that I had. I'd like to do that pattern, but maybe this isn't the right yarn to do with it because this yarn is already rather bright and rather busy, and I don't think that I need to layer another pattern on top of it. So yeah, I'm gonna keep thinking about this one. I might not want to do it. Oh, or maybe the other idea is that I could do an imitation Sophie scarf. I'm one of those people who I look at the Sophie scarf and I really respect that a lot of people buy the pattern for it, but since I can kind of discern what it is, I'm just gonna make it. So maybe I'll do that. The other thing that I'm thinking about doing is that I'm thinking about doing a ranunculus. So I made a sweater for my dear friend with this yarn and another yarn that I paired it with, but I still have 5 skeins of this left. So a ranunculus doesn't take that much yarn. It's kind of a rite of passage for knitters. I like the idea of making something that's instantly recognizable to any other knitter. It's just like a wearable shibboleth. I'm excited about that. And I think that alpaca yarn, not every pattern will work with an alpaca yarn, and I think ranunculus would. So, interested in trying that with this. Okay, so the last thing that I'm thinking about is there's a mosaic crochet cardigan that I'm thinking about trying. So it's called the Labyrinth cardigan. The pattern is posted on the Hobbii website. So I think I might try that in this Trubu yarn that I picked up from Make and Mend, which is sort of a thrift store. So you sort of have to just like take the bundles of yarn that they have and see what you can do with them. I think that a mosaic crochet project would work with this. So the next step is to make the swatch of the mosaic to see if I like it. So I'm going to swatch this. And the other thing that I'm thinking about with my swatch is that I think that I'm going to be taking a trip to see a friend in Colorado near the end of the month. And I'd kind of like to have the swatch to take with me because I'm going to be seeing my friend, I'm going to be seeing her friends, and another one of my friends in Colorado. And I want to have the swatch around to show it to people there to see if there's anyone in my extended social circle who might want this cardigan. Because I think it's one of those things that I would wear if I made it, But if someone else was in love with it, I would rather make it for them. So that's it. That's all I'm thinking. And I wanted this to be brief, so I'm going to stop. All right. Bye.